Big Wireless probably has you paying for more data than you might need. You could be throwing away thousands over a lifetime. We're not here to be the biggest. We're here to bring you something we believe is better. Our plans start at just $20. You'll get the same fast nationwide coverage without the big wireless bill.
Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com/facts. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. See site for additional facts.
You're tuned in to Money Matters Boston, 1120 AM WBNW. This is WBNW, 1120 AM, the Money Matters Radio Network. This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275CM FM. Concord, Boston, the Money Matters Radio Network.
Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women,
taking the lives of 1 in 3.
That's more than all forms of cancer combined.
For too long, heart disease and stroke have taken the lives of the women we love.
But we're not giving up.
Because we have something better.
Stronger, more powerful.
We have each other.
When we come together and go red,
the more power we have against our greatest health threat.
Visit GoRedForWomen.org today to learn more.
Congratulations to the students and staff of Emergence Academy in Springfield, Massachusetts for their winning submission to the state's Power of Presence initiative. The school's amazing video will help spread the word about the power of students being in school every day. To see the video and learn more, visit us at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
This is Tucker Silva with the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And today we're talking about how Medicaid irrevocable trusts operate. Todd, many people are afraid that if they transfer money to an irrevocable trust, they will be giving up control of their assets and will have to ask their trustee for permission to spend their own money. Now, is this a valid concern?
No, it's really not. And folks, when you think about irrevocable trust, please remember that there are many different kinds of irrevocable trust. There are some that require a loss of control, rigidity, inflexibility. However, the trust we're talking about when you're protecting assets from a nursing home allow the donor to remove and replace the trustee, allow the donor to have really an unbelievable amount of control over the assets that are in the trust. They can live in their house, they can manage and invest their own money, they can sell a house, they can buy a new house. When the money's invested, they can have the income come directly to them. Folks, the control you keep over your assets in an irrevocable trust is really something you must try to learn about, and that's why we're giving you away a guide today to help you understand these trusts.
Request this brand new guide from the folks at Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699. It's called Unlocking the Power of Medicaid Irrevocable Trusts. Cushing & Dolan have been helping families like yours for more than 30 years, and find out if they can help yours too. 866-848-5699, or you can request it from LegalExchangeShow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you from Senior Care USA. The average funeral now costs over $10,000. That leaves your loved ones the burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay your family up to $30,000 to help pay for your funeral and other expenses. There are no medical exams. Your rates will never increase, and your plan cannot be canceled, regardless of your medical conditions, as long as you make your premium payments. Get up to $30,000 in final expense insurance. Call now for free information. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 800-378-3818, 800-378-3818, 800-378-3818. That's 800-378-3818.
Hi, I'm Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts provides thousands of hours of voluntary services at our VA medical centers and soldiers' homes and is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for both single veterans and those with families. These programs are critical to serving our veterans in their time of need. You can help our great American heroes by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
As a busy mom, my to-do list is full.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
Visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Paul Lane. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Paul Lane.
Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Welcome back to the Financial Exchange. It's Mike, Paul, and Tucker with you here. The day before CPI is released, we'll get an inflation reading tomorrow morning. The Apple Developers Conference has been ongoing. We've got some general discussions about inflation expectations as well, according to the New York Federal Reserve. But before all of that, we're entering day 2 of negotiations in London between the United States and China when it comes to trade generally, more specifically rare earth materials, semiconductors, student visas, etc. And we have a piece from the New York Times to kick things off. Clock ticks as U.S. and China try to undo devastating trade curbs. Bum, bum. Oh, yeah. This is not
more like thinking.
Yeah, this is not a dramatic enough clock. We need some sort of really
more
earth-shattering. You know, maybe the one from. Never mind. Let's move on. The clock ticks, according to the New York Times. So my question for you, Paul. Is this real, or is New York Times needing some clickbait on a quiet June Tuesday? Because it reads more to me like the latter. I don't see any clock ticking. There's no deadline that we have with China and trade that we must meet before worlds collide. And frankly, I don't really expect anything to happen out of all of this either. Best case scenario, these series of meetings, best case scenario, trade tariffs don't move up. Maybe they move slightly down, and we hopefully get some magnets.
Yes.
I know I sound like a 7-year-old, but that's genuinely what I think is the best case scenario out of these negotiations. Let's frame, I guess, why I feel that way. If I am China going into this, and I know that the rest of the world is freaking out over my magnets, my, what's the element? Samarium. Samarium.
I got to say, prepping for the show today, you know, our background in finance, diving into these rare earth
elements. Going back to 8th grade chemistry, Paul?
I'm glad my chemistry grades aren't publicly available because I am not qualified to speak to some of these.
So they have this stranglehold on these rare earth elements. They're probably a little annoyed that U.S. keeps restricting NVIDIA's latest and greatest semiconductor chips from going over there, especially given how much they've invested in AI recently. They're probably not terribly happy that some of their students are no longer able to attend Harvard, or at least it's being called into question. But generally, the only thing you care about right now is, hey, can the United States or will the United States go back into pretty much trade embargo world with China? That is the lever that I think the United States has that's equivalent to China's rare earth materials. Because quite honestly, I don't see how the United States kicking out a bunch of students is even close to the same scale as China saying you can't have the rare earth materials that you use to manufacture cars and fighter jets.
Right.
Seems like just kind of an uneven sequence there. And so if you're China and you're looking at that threat of those big giant tariffs, it's a real threat. It does exist. But you're also saying, hey, let's try and play this out here for a little while. Let's not do anything rash, because the Supreme Court in the next few weeks in the United States might just tell the Trump administration, hey, all those tariffs that you used, the rules that you used to impose tariffs on China, on the European Union, and just about every other country in the world, they were illegal. You need to refund all the money, and you can't use that again next time.
Very fair.
Right?
Very
like,
fair
why would you negotiate with the United States if you are China right now? And I'm not using this as a criticism of the courts. I think that you want to have checks on presidential power. We've talked a lot about that. As much as I think President Trump might be right to slap tariffs on China, I don't know that they want the next president being able to use this to summarily say, yeah, we're punishing Israel because of something we don't like. So we will see what the courts think about all of this. But at the end of the day, that's why my expectations for this are rather low. I would be very content if we came out of this with a meaningful increase or a meaningful agreement on rare earth materials coming back into the United States and no new tariffs going on. And that's where I kind of land as my best case.
But I just don't know why China would be on board with that. What's our concession in that agreement, really?
Yeah, I guess lower tariffs on Chinese-made goods.
Right.
That 30% is going down even lower because that'll,
to reinvigorate the exports from China to the United States.
The Chinese economy is not good right now.
No.
They've got unemployment problems. They've got deflation problems. And, we make this, it's all always very U.S.-centric and U.S.-focused, but that export of those rare earth materials wasn't going to Europe either. Those magnets haven't been going to Volvo or Volkswagen either. They've been pretty much halted globally. And so, to some degree, China wants to play ball here too and say, hey, if we ultimately piss off everybody in the room, then that's probably not going to work out well for us either. And we have some vested interest in playing nice here and there. So I very much doubt we're heading back to 100% tariffs as a result of these negotiations. But look, the United States and China have deep differences of opinion in terms of how the global economy does and should work. Those aren't going to be solved by a 5-day negotiation period in London with the United States and China. And that's probably, you need some sort of degree of understanding if we're going to get to the point where trade truly opens up between these two countries. And so instead, I think you have small deals here and there, right? If the Chinese want to appease the Trump administration, they can go out and buy a bunch of agricultural goods, or frankly, even just announce that they plan to go out and buy agricultural goods to free up some of that trade imbalance. The U.S. desperately wants some of these rare earth materials, so I'm sure that there will be something. There's already been something announced on that as of last Friday. But big sweeping trade deal, man, I'd be really surprised.
No, I would be surprised too. And really what this emphasizes, Mike, the further we get along from April, is how intertwined the global economy is in terms of like these rare earth materials, for example, things that you and I, at least unless you were really buffed up on your Sumerian before the show came out, it's just not something that I knew how much dominance China had in the space. And this is not new news. If you go back, historically, this goes back decades, but it does reemphasize that China needs the purchases on our end of things. There are rare earth materials that we need from them and in Europe as well. Just to me, it continues to reinforce that point that it truly is a globally intertwined economy.
Yeah. And look, this has been China's play. The reason that China is the only one to manufacture this is not because these are actually rare and China just got lucky. These rare earth materials, I know this has been reported everywhere, but they are everywhere. You can get them in the United States. You can mine them here. Why isn't it happening here? I account as twofold. One, it's messy. Just, we actually have a little bit of respect for the environment here. We generally don't want to make a whole bunch of people move and pollute their water in order to get some of this stuff out of the ground, which China doesn't have much of an issue with. Two,
does make enough money.
We don't really like to subsidize these types of industries. Think about how unpopular the Biden bill on subsidizing even semiconductors was, and you get to the idea that the United States doesn't want to be a state-owned enterprise that mines samarium, but that's what China has done, and so when you have those dueling factors, right, it's not economically feasible to get this stuff out of the ground because of how cheap China will do it for and sell it for. And two, you'll destroy the environment by doing so, or at least it'll be really expensive to not destroy the environment by doing so. And you get to a point where you say, okay, unless this is going to be a state-owned enterprise that runs these mines, we're just going to do it in China.
Right, because you can't entice any publicly traded company or any company out there to endeavor this.
China will just put you out of business tomorrow.
They've done it before in instances here historically where they bankrupted some companies that tried this out in California where it just wasn't viable. And if you look at samarium just specifically, which is used in pretty much solely military applications and in fighter jets for Lockheed Martin, as a business producing samarium, if you're just going to have one customer out there, it's not an enticing market to go into and not a very profitable one either.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, I want to move along from China. We will be revisiting China because as much as they're doing, have already done this in rare earth materials, there's growing evidence that they are taking the same approach with vehicles, and I want to get to that. But I want to talk a bit about inflation expectations. We have the CPI report coming up tomorrow. Inflation expectations are next here on the Financial Exchange.
Find daily interviews and full shows of the Financial Exchange on our YouTube page. Subscribe to our page and get caught up on anything and everything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Summer in New England is nearly upon us. The kids are home from school. The sun doesn't set until after 8. It's likely time for you to relax. Well, while you're relaxing, take a few minutes to check out visitusvi.com and research your next vacation in the United States Virgin Islands. The USVI has something for everyone, be it the rich history of St. Croix, the spectacular beaches of St. Thomas, or the tranquil quiet of St. John. Visit one island or all three and enjoy the vacation of a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com to make your reservation today. That's visitusvi.com. Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and creating a trust is a great way to help. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law. Their brand new guide out this month is called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. There are many types of trusts to consider, but a revocable trust can establish the kinds of safeguards you'll need to protect your assets long term. Learn about how the trust can protect your assets from probate and potentially eliminate your estate taxes. If you're closing in on retirement and have an existing trust that needs a second look, or if you need a new trust to ensure that your assets are secure, call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and let them help you create a plan that gives you confidence in your financial future. That number again is 866-848-5699, or request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much. And they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine, no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline Qualification Line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense.
The Financial Exchange Show podcast drops every day on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit that subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. You're listening to the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Paul, tomorrow we'll have a consumer price index inflation reading. General expectations, median forecast is coming in at a 0.2% month-over-month increase. Year-over-year expected to come in at 2.4%. General takeaways on inflation. I know there are some genuine concerns about things, but it would seem to me that a lot of that front-running on trade tariffs and the concern that car prices and electronics prices were going to shoot up at some point, I don't know. I'm hearing a lot less of that today than I was just a couple months ago. Would you generally agree?
I would agree. It doesn't seem like as much as there's those headline stories on Target and Walmart, changing prices on certain items. I just don't feel like that's become overly prevalent other than the news stories that we've heard. But I haven't heard that from an experiential standpoint.
And yet, whenever I talk to a professional money manager or economist, and you talk about, hey, what do you think will define the next 5 years? Most that I talk to, there's some concerns about deficits, trade, etc. But most of the ones that I talk to, it's all about higher than normal inflation, and maybe higher than normal growth too is something that plays out there. But high growth, high inflation, and all of that caused by what we're seeing already today: higher government spending, higher barriers to trade, et cetera, et cetera. So we have seen those short-term expectations come in a little bit tighter, whether it is the University of Michigan surveys that we'll get every month, or this New York Fed survey, which found that the decline was most significant in projections for year-ahead price growth, which just month-over-month declined to 3.2% from the 3.6% read back in April. 3-year inflation fell to 3 from 3.2. And so, generally speaking, I think most investors and most consumers are just expecting prices to keep going up, but not quite as fast. I don't know. I keep going back to, I'll believe the inflation when I see it. And that, that we ended up getting a lot of it in 2021 and 2022, but I kept saying even then, I think that this should cause inflation, but let's wait until it actually shows up before you start doing anything. I think that's probably going to be the Federal Reserve's approach too.
That's the challenging part of this, and we've talked about this a lot. When examining the impact of these tariffs, it often seems as if we're just pushing the deadline to see whether or not these are going to be inflationary further and further, because there has been so much change in policy over the time that there was this idea that perhaps we'd see it as early as the summer. I think now generally general consensus is that more the fall is where we look to see potential impact on the inflationary front, whether it's back to school season or some of these other measures. It's just been harder to really wrap your arms around the impact. The longer it goes on, the longer maybe consumers or individuals that get polled kind of don't, overlay it as a concern out there when they're surveyed about it.
Yeah, certainly I can paint a picture. Hey, this fall, you've got 50% steel and aluminum tariffs in place. And so every canned good that you consume, every, car part and, anything that we manufacture with those products gets more expensive, not only because we are paying those higher tariffs because you don't produce some of this stuff domestically, but hey, if that's the going rate for steel and aluminum, then domestic producers are going to raise their prices too. So I get how you could see that type of thing and compound it with tariffs on China and other countries, and you could pretty quickly see that being the case. On the other hand, what if you get a Supreme Court ruling on August 1st that says, no, all the tariffs that nearly all the tariffs the Trump administration have been imposed since March were illegal, and they must refund all of those to the payers of those tariffs, which is probably what would happen if they deemed them to be illegal. I don't know that you would see deflation, but you certainly wouldn't see any big inflation, right? You're going to suddenly have a bunch of companies sitting on tariffs that they thought they were going to need to charge their customers, probably already did charge their customers, and now are getting a reimbursement of those. And so I don't know where all of this goes, but I come back to the same thing, and I think the Federal Reserve is playing the same game here, which is there are risks to the upside both on inflation and on unemployment. We have no idea if either of them are going to come to pass, and if they do, in what order they will come. And you're probably not going to do much until that happens. And so, to your point, if we're not now expecting higher inflation until maybe even this fall, I hesitate to see how the mortgage rates or Fed funds rates are going to go anywhere in the near future.
I can't make the argument to lower based on the data that we have now.
Yep.
But,
the only argument you have would be the last 3 months of unemployment data now have gotten slightly worse.
Right.
Very slightly worse. Like it's been a rounding error as to whether or not you saw 4.3 versus 4.1% unemployment. And so if that trend were to continue and by fall you had 4.5% unemployment, okay. Now I'm proven wrong and you have a different story playing out here. But there's a lot of cards that need to fall for that to actually happen. And again, the further this time gets away from these high tariffs, I think you're seeing more and more confidence from business owners and others working in different areas that were previously ringing the alarm bells about recession and where this economy was going to go.
It seems like sentiment has really improved from a lot of these surveys, but the hardest part has been the actual hard data. There really hasn't been tremendous takeaways. I mean, like the labor market stuff, there's some weakness, but nothing that's really definitive on the other front on the hard economic data.
Yeah, look, the corporate earnings have been solid. Companies have not been en masse laying people off. They've also been delaying a lot of plans.
Yes.
They've been delaying a lot of plans, and so even those delays can contribute to a weak labor market. But I even think about, so I keep hearing about all these college students who are having a tough time finding a job. And I do believe it because I keep hearing it over and over again. The youth unemployment rate is high. College grad unemployment rate is high. We had a job opening and we're interviewing candidates. I think that something like half of them, or maybe 2/3 of them, either canceled last second or no-showed on our interviews.
Really? Wow.
And so I keep tossing this around like, yeah, I keep hearing about this. I read it, and then I go have a very different experience. I mean, massive numbers of applications to the job and very well-qualified candidates and all of that stuff. But on the other hand, 2/3 of them either canceled last minute or no-showed an interview. And you're like, oh, how do I put these two together and make sense of them? And so it is a confusing market right now, and I think that things are just in some bit of holding pattern or stasis until you get some real clarity on, are the tariffs legal? Are they going to be used in the same way for the second half of the year? And will this tax bill pass? Quick break. We've got Wall Street Watch coming up next.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @TFE Show. Breaking business news is always first, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
Sometimes we know what's next. Other times, it's impossible to know. Life can change in an instant. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops. Knowing CPR gives you the ability to act and takes you from bystander to lifesaver. CPR is a life-saving skill. Join the nation of lifesavers today by learning CPR at heart.org/nation. National support for CPR education provided by Elevance Health Foundation.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and irrevocable trusts can help. Keep your assets safe from probate and the nursing home by calling Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699. Get their new guide called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. That's 866-848-5699. Or request it online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hi, I'm Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts provides thousands of hours of voluntary services at our VA medical centers and soldiers' homes and is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for both single veterans and those with families. These programs are critical to serving our veterans in their time of need. You can help our great American heroes by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we have a guide this month titled Your Retirement Preparation Checklist. Mike, one of the items on this is to address outstanding debts, and by that, I don't think we mean pay everything off, but more make sure you have a plan for different types of debt.
Yeah, there's always been that real goal for I think a lot of retirees to have no mortgage when you get to retirement, and I still see people trying to accomplish that even if they might have a sub 3% mortgage, for example, and there can be some psychological benefit to paying off that piece of debt, but where it comes down to is prioritizing, hey, I might have a car loan, I might have a home equity line of credit, and while the mortgage could be the biggest payment, it shouldn't always be prioritized.
Beyond that, I also think it is something that you need to figure out how it fits into your monthly budget and whether you can continue to spend in the fashion that you've been spending, or do you have to make changes there?
Right. A lot of people use some rules of thumb when it comes to how much income they'll need in retirement, and those can be useful, but it all has to be customized to your individual plan. And the last thing you want to do is pay a whole bunch in taxes just to be able to pay down some debt that wasn't really a priority in the first place. And so definitely addressing your debt and knowing how to do that intelligently when you approach retirement is key and important.
The guide is titled Your Retirement Preparation Checklist, and the way to request it from Armstrong Advisory Group is by calling 800-393-4001. That number again is 800-393-4001, and the guide is titled Your Retirement Preparation Checklist.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Time now for Wall Street Watch, a complete look at what's moving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Markets are in wait-and-see mode on day 2 of trade talks in London between the U.S. and China. Investors are also readying for an inflation reading due out tomorrow morning in the Consumer Price Index. Right now, the Dow is completely flat, S&P 500 up by 14 points, and the NASDAQ is up by 0.3%. Russell 2000 is up by 0.8%. 10-year Treasury yield is down by 1 basis point, now at 4.46%, and crude oil up another 1% higher, trading just below $66 a barrel. Apple held its annual developers conference yesterday and seemingly underwhelmed investors on its Apple Intelligence advancements. The bigger focus of the tech giant's event involved its software facelift, marking its first significant redesign of its iOS software since 2013. Apple shares are up modestly today. Meanwhile, U.S.-listed shares of Taiwan Semiconductor are up over 2.5% after the chipmaker saw its revenue jump nearly 40% compared with last year. Elsewhere, Tesla shares are rebounding 1.5% after the stock was downgraded by Baird yesterday, in addition to the ongoing feud between CEO Elon Musk and President Trump. The New York Times is reporting that Meta is forming a new artificial intelligence research lab and bringing on Alexander Wang, the founder and CEO of startup Scale AI. Meta is also in advanced talks to invest more than $10 billion in Scale AI, that according to a report from Bloomberg. Meta shares are up about 1%. According to CNBC, Paramount told employees it would be reducing its workforce by 3.5%. Paramount shares are flat. J.M. Smucker posted lower sales and swung to a loss in the latest quarter. The food maker's guidance also missed expectations. J.M. Smucker shares are sinking by 13%, and after today's closing bell, we'll see earnings from GameStop. I'm Tucker Silva, and that's Wall Street Watch.
I would like to talk about corruption and insider trading, Paul, specifically with our elected officials. So there's been a lot made, for instance, of President Trump's special dinner that he had. When was that? Back in like March? May, sorry. So he hosted a dinner with 220 holders of a cryptocurrency that bears his name. And tough to look at this as anything other than buying your way into a meeting with the president. It was very blatant, very front and center, and I think deservedly got a lot of criticism about the way it was structured. The problem I see is all of those criticizing it have almost no leg to stand on, because instead of doing these conflict of interest deals out in the front, what they've done instead over the last 30 years has been kind of behind closed doors with insider trading on knowledge that they have that is really difficult to charge them with. So, if you don't like this, then you probably shouldn't like what you've seen from the likes of all elected officials and all presidents past that have done this in some different way. Just shadier behind closed doors would be my opinion. But Wall Street Journal is reporting today that lawmakers traded stocks heavily as President Trump rolled out Liberation Day tariffs. I can guarantee there were select lawmakers that had inside knowledge about what was coming on this front. And you have massive trading that was probably done on inside information that will never be charged because it's really difficult to do with lawmakers. And I keep thinking about this and going back to one solution. If you're an elected official, pretty much at the level of I think governor and then anything federally, you just can't own stocks. You certainly can't trade them.
Yeah.
And we need to have this across the board. And you know what? You give them a capital gains waiver, right? So you say, look, yeah, we understand you're an elected official that owns $20 million worth of ExxonMobil. Mm-hmm. You would have to pay a boatload of taxes if you went and sold it. Fine. You can transfer your cost basis. You have to transfer it into an exchange fund. Just owning an index of U.S. stocks is fine. Mm-hmm. But you still can't trade that. but you're not even allowed to own the stocks. We won't charge you a capital gain on it because you're an elected official, and that'd be punishing. That'd be unfair if we said, hey, you're elected now, so you have to sell all of your stocks and pay a bunch of taxes. No, that's fine. You can transfer your positions into a general index that holds U.S. stocks, but they can't even be industry specific. It has to just be some index. I don't care who decides this, the S&P 500 or something along those lines. So long as you're holding office, you cannot trade that index. You can't buy it and sell it when you know that President Trump's about to roll out tariffs or the next president's about to raise taxes or shut down the economy due to a COVID disease. And that's the deal. That's the trade-off. We're going to give you a gift on the tax side. We're going to allow you to defer the taxes and have zero taxes for getting rid of your shares. But this blind trust crap where you're allowed to have it managed by somebody else who allegedly you don't talk to and, you don't influence. It's garbage. It's absolute garbage. It's completely one of the major reasons that everyone distrusts American politicians. And it's also bipartisan.
And I don't understand why the public markets do a better job with this than the government officials. Like, we work with a lot of clients who work in specific industries that have very strict regulations as to what they can buy and sell down to a sector, and there's blackout windows and all sorts of other things. Why can't that same sort of implementation be levied on government officials? Baffles me every time this comes up. I don't understand why.
Judges too, actually. I didn't name them.
Right.
Judges have to be, like, oh yeah, I'm overhearing a court case on whether or not Google should be broken up, but I can trade in and out of Google stock.
Right.
That is literally what you're allowed to do today.
Yeah.
So long as you can make an argument that it wasn't based on non-public material information, you are allowed to do that. You might have an ethics inquiry, but there is no rule barring the judge who is sitting on Google's case from buying and selling Google stock while he is sitting on that case.
With the proliferation of index funds out there, there are a multitude of investment options for them to go into. You could I wouldn't maybe hammer on the sector pieces. I would just say you can have sector ETFs if you want, but you can't trade them. You can only trade them in these certain windows of the year, whether that's when lawmakers are in recess or whatever you want. Just like a public, there are many solutions to this, Mike, and you and I feel like, Chuck, all of us have batted around this segment 100 times on the show.
It's just
beating
so
it down, but
preposterous.
nothing changes. And you know why nothing changes is because
they make money.
They make money.
It's self-interest. You
Right.
make the rules. Of course, they're not going to outlaw themselves from being able to make a whole bunch of money on private information.
It's just like the step up in basis and some of these other tax concepts that come up around, election time. These elected officials are incentivized by them too, which is why you can sort of know that perhaps you have a good chance of these staying in place because the elected officials benefit from these
And people
concepts
wonder
too.
why there's no outrage about President Trump holding this dinner of people buying his cryptocurrency. It's because all of you have been doing this, but shadier, for the last 50 years. And getting away with it. So, of course, there's no outrage over this one. All he's doing is, shining a light on it and just pretty much admitting it. Like, yeah, you want to buy a dinner with me? Go ahead and buy my meme coin. I don't know. At least he's not lying to you. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, what do we want to do next? I want to talk about all these pieces on where markets go next, since apparently all these writers have a much better idea of whether or not the S&P 500 has room to rally. That's next here on the Financial Exchange.
The Financial Exchange streams live on YouTube. Subscribe to our page and stay up to date on breaking business news all morning long. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and creating a trust is a great way to help. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law. Their brand new guide out this month is called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. There are many types of trusts to consider, but a revocable trust can establish the kinds of safeguards you'll need to protect your assets long-term. Learn about how the trust can protect your assets from probate and potentially eliminate your estate taxes. If you're closing in on retirement and have an existing trust that needs a second look, or if you need a new trust to ensure that your assets are secure, call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and let them help you create a plan that gives you confidence in your financial future. That number again is 866-848-5699, or request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Summer in New England is nearly upon us. The kids are home from school. The sun doesn't set until after 8. It's likely time for you to relax. Well, while you're relaxing, take a few minutes to check out visitusvi.com and research your next vacation in the United States Virgin Islands. The USVI has something for everyone, be it the rich history of St. Croix, the spectacular beaches of St. Thomas, or the tranquil quiet of St. John. Visit one island or all three and enjoy the vacation of a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com to make your reservation today. That's visitusvi.com.
Preparing for retirement is a time-consuming and challenging process. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and if you're at the point where you can see retirement approaching, now is the time to make sure your plan covers all the bases. Our new guide is called Your Retirement Preparation Checklist, and it discusses a variety of important topics as you make decisions for later life. Everything from reviewing your income sources so that you have a full understanding of how much money you'll need in retirement, to addressing any outstanding debt, which may lessen your overall financial burden. Planning for retirement takes a great deal of time and effort, and this new guide is designed to offer you the guidance you may need. Call us at 800-393-4001 and request your free guide today. That's 800-393-4001, or you can request it online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Congratulations to the students and staff of Emergence Academy in Springfield, Massachusetts for their winning submission to the state's Power of Presence initiative. The school's amazing video will help spread the word about the power of students being in school every day. To see the video and learn more, visit us at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
Text us 617-362-1385 with your comments and questions about today's show. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
This segment of the Financial Exchange is brought to you in part by the U.S. Virgin Islands Department of Tourism. The U.S. Virgin Islands are St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John and are consistently voted one of the top Caribbean vacation destinations. Enjoy world-class cuisine, pristine beaches, rich history, and a vibrant nightlife. Book your trip now to visit America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. For reservations and more information, go to visitusvi.com. That's visitusvi.com.
Paul, the subject of private equity and private credit has been getting a lot of headline news recently. Moody's this morning is now coming out and sounding the alarm on private funds, specifically their goal of marketing to individuals. There's been discussion about having these types of products available in 401ks, for example. We're not there yet, but that's been some of the discussion. Before we even get there, can you help define the idea of private equity and private credit and how it exists today? And we don't need to stop. The scale is massive now compared to where it was 20 years ago, but just what is it for those that aren't really eligible to participate in it today?
Yeah, so typically where private equity is incorporated in terms terms of the financial market is largely with pensions, endowments, large pools of capital.
Big family offices, right? If you're managing money for the Walton family, you might be participating in something like this.
Where there's an array of investments that could underline these private equity funds. They're sector specific. There's all sorts of different ways. And basically what they're looking to do is find a way to generate a differentiated return above and beyond that of the standard capital markets that regular Joe investor may have access to, like the S&P. They're trying to outpace that through access into private deals in any array of spaces out there. It can be technology, infrastructure. They can take on many different machinations here.
Which is why we talk about these unicorns, right? You have these companies that are billion-dollar valuations that are privately held, right? OpenAI is a nonprofit, so it's kind of a weird one, but SpaceX, all these types of companies that you can't access as a public investor can be accessed through private equity markets. And the same goes for lending, right? On the other side of that, you have private credit, where you are lending money to all sorts of investors, many times private companies, that, these are unrated bonds. They are not things that hit the public markets and trade in any way. They are just held on private balance sheets. The idea has been, hey, would these be appropriate for individual investors, small-time investors that don't traditionally get access to them? Clearly, they're popular amongst billionaires, and maybe that's a good place for them. I think, on the surface, why would anyone be talking about this? Well, because the 401k market is massive. You have trillions of dollars. I don't know how much money's in the 401k market. Probably trillions of dollars that you could potentially access there. And hey, wouldn't this be a great market to access? Moody's, I think, interestingly, I don't know why they're the ones that are ringing the alarm bell here, but basically saying like, hey, this is a bad idea, not for those individual investors, but rather for the companies themselves. Basically, hey, if you start getting into this, you are not prepared to deal with the amount of regulation you will need to deal with in order to do this, and you risk having some serious reputation risk by going about this, which I have to say I fully agree. I think, generally speaking, that individual investors should have some access to this type of thing if they really want to. I don't agree with a lot of the rules that are out there, such as, hey, you can only invest in this type of product if you have $250,000 of income or $1 million in net worth. I don't know. Those always seemed kind of arbitrary to me. Like, if somebody is really interested in private equity and they only make $150,000 and they take a class on how to invest in it, who am I to say, no, you can't? It seemed to me like, so long as somebody wants to get the education, I'm not really sure why we would put these restrictions on it. But realistically, I don't think private equity wants that person's money. They might have a $500,000 investment minimum to even put money into all of this. And the risk that you have out there, to be really clear, there is no real transparency into these funds. If you own a bunch of debt that's in there, you don't know that it's gone bad until it goes bad. There's no Moody's downgrading it. There's no real transparency into what's in here. And you have big liquidity risks as well. If you're an investor who does own something private, this could be a private equity fund, it could be something else, but something where it contains liquidity restrictions, it's really important to understand how that fits into your portfolio. It could be anything from an annuity to a private equity fund, but understanding when we talk about risks, I feel like everyone's mind immediately goes to stock market crashing risk. That's the only risk that people tend to focus on. And my point to investors over and over is it's an important thing for you to understand and focus on, but have you considered what the risk is to your portfolio if half of it is tied up in private holdings that you can't sell? Have you considered the risk to your portfolio if inflation runs 0.5% higher than you're predicting for the next 20 years? And what I find when I test some of those things is people are far less prepared to deal with those types of risks and often over-prepared to deal with the market crashing by 50%, which frankly usually doesn't happen. If you have questions along those lines, if you are evaluating your own retirement plan and finding some of these things are ringing true to you, give the folks at Armstrong Advisory Group a call. We offer free consultations on your retirement plan and your investment strategy so that you can get a coherent and cohesive look at everything that you're doing and really look under the hood to understand it. That free consultation is available by calling 800-393-4001. Again, it's the Armstrong Advisory Group at 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Paul, do you want to talk about college degrees or digital shelves?
I want to do the college degrees.
Yeah, so Alison Schrager writes, and I think she has a really interesting perspective on this. Her unifying theory of finance is that everything goes seriously wrong when people start seeing something, a bond, a mortgage-backed security, crypto exchange, whatever it is, as risk-free when it really isn't risk-free in any meaningful way. And her point is that's exactly how a college degree was treated over the last 30 or some odd years. There's no risk. You can borrow as much money as you need to get it, and everyone who gets a college degree makes more money after they graduate.
Right.
I don't think I'm exaggerating too much by saying that that's kind of the summary of how college has been treated for the last 30 years, and certainly was the message I was delivered as a kid.
Yes.
Go get a college degree, otherwise have fun working that landscaping job for the rest of your life and breaking your back.
Opportunities will be limited. And I sit here, I just had a baptism for my youngest daughter over the weekend, and some 529 contributions went in after that. And you really scrutinize the investment that we're going to be making 18 years from now in college. Is it going to return? Are we going to generate a return on investment? And I continue to wonder, at the cost that we're at on the college side, and this conversation has gone on for decades,
sure.
Is it really going to justify it? I mean, particularly the problem that I have most is, investing in a degree that's not going to get the commensurate income return if you're leveraging yourself with a substantial amount of debt to do it. To be a social worker, for example, and taking on hundreds of thousands of debt, you
need a graduate degree to do.
Exactly. You just know that you're going to be constrained from an income perspective to be able to pay that out. And so it is something that you wonder, how is the education industry going to evolve over the next 20 years or so? It hasn't changed since we had these concerns 30 years ago, but who knows what the future holds.
One thing that I'm very slightly encouraged by, which is that 30-year inflation number on college education has been in the high single digits, I believe. And if you're willing to look at just the last decade, it's still gone up, but the rate of inflation has slowed considerably. I know that's not the most encouraging news, like, oh yeah, now education's $100,000, where if it had continued to be $130,000, but I do see more scrutiny. I do see people taking a second look at that, and clearly enrollment numbers are also down, especially among men. Enrollment numbers in four-year institutions are down. You can take that as maybe good news, scrutinizing it. You could also take it as really bad news that men are going to fall further behind. But nonetheless, that's definitely occurring. Markets are in positive territory. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll have a full recap in the second hour of the show.
Is it a stroke? Even if you're not sure, act fast and call 911. Signs can include face drooping on one side, arm weakness, speech difficulty, or not making sense when talking. Time is critical. A stroke requires immediate medical care, which starts as soon as the ambulance arrives. So if you see any sign of stroke, act fast and call 911. Visit mass.gov/stroke, sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts has helped me and countless others adjust to civilian life through a variety of incredible programs. Through our local Veterans Assistance Program, we provide necessary services to veterans and their communities, such as food shopping, landscaping, and companionship, but we need your support. You can help by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275 CM FM. Concord, Boston, the Money Matters Radio Network.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you from Senior Care USA. The average funeral now costs over $10,000. That leaves your loved ones the burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay your family up to $30,000 to help pay for your funeral and other expenses. There are no medical exams. Your rates will never increase, and your plan cannot be canceled, regardless of your medical conditions, as long as you make your premium payments. Get up to $30,000 in final expense insurance. Call now for free information. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. That's 800-378-3818.
Here at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we are committed to all students not only attending, but succeeding at school. Your presence is powerful. Share why you attend at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Summer in New England is nearly upon us. The kids are home from school, the sun doesn't set until after 8. It's likely time for you to relax. Well, while you're relaxing, take a few minutes to check out visitusvi.com and research your next vacation in the United States Virgin Islands. The USVI has something for everyone, be it the rich history of St. Croix, the spectacular beaches of St. Thomas, or the tranquil quiet of St. John. Visit one island or all three and enjoy the vacation of a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com to make your reservation today. That's visitusvi.com.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much. And they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline qualification line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense.
There are many different elements to a complete retirement plan, and it takes time to make sure you've covered all your bases. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Our new guide is called Your Retirement Preparation Checklist, and it may offer you the guidance you need to make the right decisions about your retirement plan. From deciding on a specific date to retire, to reviewing your income sources, to picking a place to live, this guide discusses numerous topics that are important to your overall planning. Many other issues need to be considered as well, like solidifying your estate plan and establishing lifestyle goals. Call us right now at 800-393-4001 and ask for your free guide today. That number again is 800-393-4001, or you can request it online at armstrongadvisory.com. That's armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
This is Tucker Silva with the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing and Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And today we're talking about how Medicaid irrevocable trusts operate. Now, Todd, it takes 5 years to protect your assets from the cost of long-term care. If you aren't sure you or your spouse will make the 5 years before going into a nursing home, should you even bother to do your estate planning?
The answer is absolutely yes, you should bother. And here's why, folks. There's people who maybe don't even start their planning until they're 80. It doesn't mean just because you're 80, you don't try, you don't plan, right? 85, you plan. You don't know whether you're going to get sick or not get sick. But by the same token, when you're 65 and you're doing your planning, you also might not make it past the 5 years. So just because you might not make it past the 5 years is not a reason to get this clock started. For example, lots of times when we put assets in the trust, we leave lots of assets outside the trust, especially IRA assets. So let's say you made it 3 years, but you had $200,000 in an IRA outside the trust. If I got $1 million worth of assets in the trust, I'm happy to spend $200,000 of my IRA to get past the remaining 2 years to get me protected from the nursing home with the $1 million that went in there. So getting the clock started is always better than not having the clock started.
Cushing and Dolan have been helping families like yours for more than 30 years, and find out if they can help yours too. Request this brand new guide called Unlocking the Power of Medicaid Irrevocable Trust. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or you can request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing and Dolan. Cushing and Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Paul Lane. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Paul Lane.
Morning, welcome back to the Financial Exchange. It's Mike, Paul, and Tucker with you on a Tuesday. Thank you for tuning in, whether you're listening in Boston on RKO, down the Cape on XTK, out in Worcester on TAG. We appreciate it, and a special welcome to our new listeners on Sirius XM Business Channel 132 as you're tuning in. Maybe for the first time here on the show, we cover business news, financial news, inflation. It's all on the table every day, and it all affects your wallet, so appreciate you tuning in. We have ongoing conversations between the U.S. and China over in London right now as we speak. I have not seen any updates or announcements on that for the last real day and a half as these things kicked off yesterday. But if we do get anything, we'll be sure to pass along. I think personally expectations are not terribly high for where things go. Best case, I'm hoping we get some magnets, but we will see where that goes. Tomorrow at 8:30 a.m., we will get an inflation reading on the CPI, Consumer Price Index. Expectations are to be relatively muted, about a 0.2% increase on prices overall. 2.4% year over year when we look at it. So relatively good news on inflation is what is anticipated. We'll be covering that as we open tomorrow on the Financial Exchange. But the first story I want to tackle is the criticism that's been making its way on Apple, and specifically their seeming lack of artificial intelligence ambition. They just finished up is the conference ongoing, the Worldwide Developers
I think it's for
Conference?
a few days, yeah,
Okay,
but it kicked off yesterday.
WWDC, which has nothing to do with wrestling, is ongoing, and there's a lot of anticipation. Hey, will Apple have any big announcements when it comes to AI and native AI on phones, which had been promised at the last developers conference and never really followed through on? And from what I understand, instead, what you got was some pretty exciting, new hardware and new looks to phones and all sorts of other stuff, but nothing really substantial on artificial intelligence. And it raises the question, is Apple genuinely falling behind? Because they are, let's think through the Mag 7. Are there any companies that you can argue are further behind on their at least public announcements when it comes to artificial intelligence than Apple?
No, probably
Apple,
not.
So let's run through them. NVIDIA, certainly not. Microsoft, no. Google, no. Meta has been pretty public about their moves that they have made.
Amazon with Anthropic, they've been working on it.
Tesla, I haven't seen anything, but they have been pretty public about their investments that they're trying to make. And so I think Apple is arguably the trailer in the clubhouse there when it comes to their AI investments. And the only question that matters to me is this another Apple story where they are not the first of the party? They didn't invent the MP3 player. They didn't invent the smartphone or the headphones. They didn't invent smartwatches. What they did was they took existing ideas that were out there that others had already come up with and made it theirs.
And executed far better.
Sexy. Yeah. They made it popular. They made it easy to use and have created multi-billion-dollar industries off of it, whether it's even their less successful products like Apple TV have produced somewhat good results when it comes to all of this. And so the question that I have is it that, or is this BlackBerry 25 years ago? I have my own theories, but is that when BlackBerry was really popular? Like, it was pre-Great Financial Crisis. I think everyone and their mother, probably around 03, 04, 05, was carrying a BlackBerry around. And
early 2000s. Yeah.
Everyone was under the assumption that, hey, this is what, I have my BlackBerry number. I can text between BlackBerry numbers. It's its own universe, and it can never be disrupted. And we don't need to worry about, creating a screen or, creating a smartphone because we are BlackBerry and we dominate the industry. Then the smartphone came out and pretty much wiped them out, and I don't believe that BlackBerry even exists as its own standalone company anymore.
The phone is jettisoned entirely, but I think they still have a company that does cybersecurity or something like that, believe it or not.
So barely exists would be the point. And I don't know. I tend to give Apple the benefit of the doubt here because for 20 years they have proven that they can be the last of the party and still make an amazing product that everybody wants to buy. But there is, I guess I can understand where people are approaching it from the other perspective, which is, hey, Apple, are you getting tired?
Yeah, I take that view a little bit. They have such built-up gravitas that it's hard to beat them up too much. But you do have a different visionary at the helm. Tim Cook has done a fantastic job since taking over in, I believe, the mid-2010s when Steve Jobs, got hit with his health issues and then subsequently passed. He's been a very good steward of the company, but the company hasn't innovated like it did under Jobs. I don't think I can really come to any specific product that came out during that span over the last 10 or 15 years that was as successful as some of the predecessors of the iPad, the iPhone, etc. And you wonder if, to your point, Apple could be in a position that they could be late to the game because, face it, they have the users. So if they're able to they have the ability that if there is a successful app or piece of software that can be translated into an app, they can put it on their app store and still monetize from that. Probably not as substantially as the creator of that software, but they have a billion users that they can sort of deploy that technology to, and maybe they can iterate on it to be better. But
the question that matters is, could there be an AI piece of hardware that convinces
that unseats
Tucker and Paul to leave the Apple? It's not just unseat the iPhone, because to do this, you have to leave the Apple universe.
Right.
And that's
the App Store.
That's the piece that Apple has that I think some fail to stress about all this is you suddenly want to do this. Okay, see you later to your headphones, your watch, all of these things that you have integrated into your lifestyle at this point. It's not so simple as just saying, oh yeah, I'm going to go with a Android phone because the AI is better, or I'm going to go with this new device that ChatGPT is trying to create with who's the designer, Joni Ives, that they're teaming up to create over there. Like, it's not so simple. It's not the same as BlackBerry was because there wasn't a universe that you embedded yourself into with BlackBerry in the same way that there is with Apple. There's such a deep moat there that it would truly need to be something next level legendary for somebody to make that move. There's nothing out there today on the Samsung or Google phones that you say, oh yeah, I'm willing to ditch Apple because the AI is so much better on these other products. And so I know there's a lot of criticism being tossed around Apple. I tend to think they're probably handling this the right way. Show me how it can make my users' lives better, and we will jump in with both feet and invest a bunch of money. But I don't see it today. I have a Google phone. I see nothing in there that says, oh yeah, this is really a game changer. And I get just as many spam calls. I have just as difficult time of writing an email on my phone. I don't think there's anything that Google is doing with my Android phone that makes my life easier because of AI.
To me, the search front is where, and Google's started to make some changes. That's where I see certainly some breeding competition. But on the hardware side of things, there obviously is nothing out there, and there's no argument to be made that you should switch away from your Apple devices just yet because of any features on any competitor's phones. But it's a mistake to just think that the incumbent can continue to dominate for decades on. I don't know, but we've seen it historically, whether it's BlackBerry, Palm Pilots, these things tend to evolve over time.
Yeah, Apple stock, by the way, down a good 16% this year, so not being rewarded for their
they've
lack
had a ton
AI
of stuff
endeavors.
going on, China and everything else. It's been a tough year.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, a little bit of trivia here is next on the Financial Exchange.
The Financial Exchange is now available across the country and around the world on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132. Stay informed about Wall Street trends, economic policy, and breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is live on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
There are many different elements to a complete retirement plan, and it takes time to make sure you've covered all your bases. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Our new guide is called Your Retirement Preparation Checklist, and it may offer you the guidance you need to make the right decisions about your retirement plan. From deciding on a specific date to retire, to reviewing your income sources, to picking a place to live, this guide discusses numerous topics that are important to your overall planning. Many other issues need to be considered as well, like solidifying your estate plan and establishing lifestyle goals. Call us right now at 800-393-4001 and ask for your free guide today. That number again is 800-393-4001, or you can request it online at armstrongadvisory.com. That's armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Summer in New England is nearly upon us. The kids are home from school. The sun doesn't set until after 8. It's likely time for you to relax. Well, while you're relaxing, take a few minutes to check out visitusvi.com and research your next vacation in the United States Virgin Islands. The USVI has something for everyone, be it the rich history of St. Croix, the spectacular beaches of St. Thomas, or the tranquil quiet of St. John. Visit one island or all three and enjoy the vacation of a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com to make your reservation today. That's visitusvi.com. Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and creating a trust is a great way to help. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law. Their brand new guide out this month is called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. There are many types of trusts to consider, but irrevocable trust can establish the kinds of safeguards you'll need to protect your assets long term. Learn about how the trust can protect your assets from probate and potentially eliminate your estate taxes. If you're closing in on retirement and have an existing trust that needs a second look, or if you need a new trust to ensure that your assets are secure, call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and let them help you create a plan that gives you confidence in your financial future. That number again is 866-848-5699, or request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
Miss any of the show? Catch up at your convenience by visiting financialexchangeshow.com and clicking the on-demand icon where you'll find all of our interviews and full shows. This is your home for the latest business and financial news in New England and around the country. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. And now's the perfect time to register for this year's 5K at Castle Island by visiting dav5k.boston. The event will sell out again, so if you're interested in participating, now's the time to reserve your spot. Come out and help support our great American heroes by joining us for the DAV 5K. Visit dav5k.boston to register or to make a donation today. That's dav5k.boston. Time for trivia here on the Financial Exchange, and today is comedian Bill Burr's 57th birthday. Burr began his stand-up comedy career in 1992 in Boston. Burr has added acting to his resume with roles in Breaking Bad, The Mandalorian, and Old Dads. Burr is currently starring in Glenn Ross on Broadway with Kieran Culkin and Bob Odenkirk. So, trivia question today. Which character does Bill Burr play in Glenn Ross? Once again, which character does Bill Burr play in Glenn Ross? And again, that's currently on Broadway. Be the fifth person today to text us at 617-362-1385 with the correct answer, and you win a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. Once again, the fifth correct response to text us to the number 617-362-1385 will win that t-shirt. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Bloomberg reports that Mark Zuckerberg is personally handling the interview and rollout of a new Superintelligence AI team at Meta. This comes after some apparent frustration over the quality of and response to Llama 4, the latest version of Meta's large language model. He is sitting down with folks and inviting them out to his homes in Lake Tahoe and Palo Alto. And I was just talking to Paul about this during the break. I don't know if anyone listening has seen the previews for the HBO movie Mountainhead, which aren't getting the best reviews. But
it's not?
When you describe Mark Zuckerberg as personally interviewing people in his mansions at Lake Tahoe and Palo Alto, and then go watch the previews for this movie where 4 billionaires get together and have a get-together over a weekend while the world is literally melting down in front of them, riots and people dying because of their technology products that they put together, you can't help but draw the comparisons between the two. And I recognize that I'm perhaps being unfair to Mark Zuckerberg on all this, but it really just drew my attention directly to it. And I guess good for HBO for identifying the moment and putting together something that is fitting for the time being. But what has Meta been doing on AI, and what are they hoping to achieve with this Superintelligence AI team, I guess? Because I have to say, Meta has actually been very public about the idea that they are already seeing the benefits of artificial intelligence through their ad sales, through directing customers to certain products, and already benefiting from it. And this type of story makes me question how much AI washing has been going on over at Meta.
Well, there's a couple things to different parts out there. They've been benefiting it for like a decade, but just in a different way, shape, or form. Like, the algorithms.
How do we describe AI is what it comes back down to.
Exactly. Right? The fact that you go on to your Facebook or your Instagram, they are feeding you material that's been generated by algorithms, which are tangential, forms of AI. The large language models and ChatGPT in that space, they do lag behind. And you can see searching, I believe, on Facebook, they've tried to incorporate their version of AI into those types of searches and trying to become the market leader in the space. They recognize the opportunity that's in front of them, but they have done little to unseat. I believe ChatGPT is the market leader. You could argue that that's the one that's most commonly tied to any sort of AI and large language models. And this idea of getting to general intelligence is that a AI large language model would be smarter than or as smart as a human and able to reason and make inferences based on all sorts of information. That's the idea.
We're pretty far away from that, from what I understand.
We are.
These AI models have trouble with some very basic math.
They absolutely do.
So I fortunately think we're a ways away from that, but Mark Zuckerberg apparently putting himself out there to recruit this new AI team, so we will see.
He's always trying to chase the next thing, and usually he's been successful at buying a company that does it really well to fend off competitors.
What does that say about him, right?
But
hasn't had a hit since Facebook.
You can't knock that. I mean, it's one tremendous hit, but the metaverse, you don't really hear a lot about that recently.
Speaking of giant tech companies and their experiences in AI, news sites, the likes of New York Times and many others rely heavily on Google to direct traffic to their web pages, right? So if I want to do a Google search today of tell me about the negotiations ongoing between the U.S. and China over in London right now, generally speaking, at least 2 months ago, I would be directed to a whole bunch of stories from the likes of those news creators, those news outlets. And if I wanted to learn about it, I would click through. Maybe I'm hit with a paywall. Maybe I get a few free articles. That has changed a little bit just over the course of the last couple of months, Paul. And I guess I'll test this out now to see if it does work with something as current as this. But tell me about negotiations between U.S. and China in London. And I'm going to continue in AI mode. In June 2025, the United States and China have been holding trade negotiations in London, focusing on easing their ongoing trade dispute. These discussions are a continuation of talks that started in Geneva in May, where a temporary truce was reached to de-escalate the trade war. Key aspects of the London talks includes the who is involved on the delegation side of things, where it's happening, what the focus areas are, what the progress has been and what the outlook is, and the background of all of this. All of this is generated by Google. It's about a page worth of information that's generally useful if I'm trying to get a summary without clicking a single news article.
Yeah, and I just did a similar one, what are rare earth metals? Something we talked about in the first segment of the show. My wife, I believe, over the weekend, some Google search, same sort of deal. The bottom line is you, myself, my wife are not clicking on the link, and it's becoming less and less relevant. Like Wikipedia happens to be the first one that comes up for rare earth element, but I don't even need to read that because the AI overview on top of that summarizes the 17 metallic elements, et cetera, and that's how Google has made its money, is paying for receiving money for that positioning on the links. Now you're just getting more of the summary and the answers, but they're recognizing they have to cannibalize their own business in a way to stay up against ChatGPT and others out there.
Yeah, it's sorry, go ahead, Tucker.
No, I was just going to say, it's not only that, Paul, like in terms of the AI blur, but you have to scroll 3 swipes now. Whereas in the past, it was just like, boom, it's right there. You don't have to scroll far at all. Like, when's the last time you've gone to multiple page searches on Google? It's usually just like the first page,
completely phased out,
and then that's it.
Right.
Now, I will say that, if I'm trying to learn about something and report on it on a show like this, I'm not taking the AI summary. I am clicking through the links. I am checking the sources and saying, hey, did AI actually summarize this stuff correctly, or is this absolute garbage?
But I'll tell you what, I don't use it for in-depth research anymore for show prep. I use ChatGPT if I'm looking for a real deep, in-depth analysis, because I don't want to go through the links. I want to just have one consolidated answer to go through.
So this talks about how this is a real problem for the news sites. It's a problem for Google, too.
Yeah.
Right, like, be clear here. Google gets paid for directing that traffic. They are no longer doing so, and therefore, if you are the Huffington Post or if you're New York Times and you're seeing traffic decline 40% year over year,
you got to change
guess
your
what?
business model.
You ain't paying.
Right, that too.
Quick break. Wall Street Watch is next.
Bringing the latest financial news straight to your radio every day. It's the Financial Exchange on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and creating a trust is a great way to help. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law. Their brand new guide out this month is called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. There are many types of trusts to consider, but a revocable trust can establish the kinds of safeguards you'll need to protect your assets long term. Learn about how the trust can protect your assets from probate and potentially eliminate your estate taxes. If you're closing in on retirement and have an existing trust that needs a second look, or if you need a new trust to ensure that your assets are secure, call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and let them help you create a plan that gives you confidence in your financial future. That number again is 866-848-5699, or request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much, and they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline qualification line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense.
Congratulations to the students and staff of Emergence Academy in Springfield, Massachusetts for their winning submission to the state's Power of Presence initiative. The school's amazing video will help spread the word about the power of students being in school every day. To see the video and learn more, visit us at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Sometimes we know what's next. Other times, it's impossible to know. Life can change in an instant. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops. Knowing CPR gives you the ability to act and takes you from bystander to lifesaver. CPR is a life-saving skill. Join the nation of lifesavers today by learning CPR at heart.org/nation. National support for CPR education provided by Elevance Health Foundation.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we have a guide available this month titled Your Retirement Preparation Checklist. One of the items on that list, reviewing your investment portfolio. And Mike, I think one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is making no changes to their investment portfolio right up until the minute they retire and then making a drastic shift.
Yeah, I mean, look, that drastic shift can sometimes be called for, but only if the preparation hasn't been happening over the years. And that's where having a checklist in place and really addressing these things well ahead of retirement is the most comprehensive strategy and probably the best planned strategy that you can have out there.
And when we talk about an asset allocation in retirement, it's not just, hey, I'm X years old, I need to be, situated in a certain fashion. It's much more taking into account your income needs over different time horizons, any other big spending items that you might have, and obviously risk tolerance and time horizon for retirement. Big difference between retiring at 60 and retiring at 70.
Well, and the tools can change too, right? Even if you were in a tool that made you automatically more defensive as you got closer to retirement, like many 401ks do, it might not be the best distribution tool for you when you're actually ready to pull that trigger, stop working, and then ultimately begin taking withdrawals out of that 401k. And so really important to review this piece by piece.
Our guide this month is titled Your Retirement Preparation Checklist, and the way to request it is by calling 800-393-4001. Again, the guide is titled Your Retirement Preparation Checklist, and the way to request it from Armstrong Advisory Group is by calling 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Time now for Wall Street Watch, a complete look at what's moving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Well, markets are in wait-and-see mode on day two of trade talks in London between the U.S. and China. Traders are also waiting for an inflation reading due out tomorrow morning in the Consumer Price Index. Right now, markets are flat completely. Dow is only off by 8 points. S&P 500 is up by merely 1 point, and the NASDAQ is off by only 27 points. Russell 2000 is up by 0.75%. 10-year Treasury yield down by 1 basis point, now at 4.47%, and crude oil up over 1% higher, trading just above $66 a barrel. Apple held its annual developers conference yesterday and seemingly underwhelmed investors on its Apple Intelligence advancements. The bigger focus of the tech giant's event involved a software facelift, marking its first significant redesign of its iOS software since 2013. Apple shares are up by about 1%. Elsewhere, Tesla rebounding by 3% after the stock was downgraded by Baird yesterday, in addition to the ongoing feud between CEO Elon Musk and President Trump. The New York Times is reporting that Meta is forming a new artificial intelligence research lab and bringing on Alexander Wang, the founder and CEO of startup Scale AI. Meta is also in advanced talks to invest more than $10 billion in Scale AI. That, according to Bloomberg, Meta shares are up by about 1/3%. J.M. Smucker posted lower sales and swung to a loss in the latest quarter. The food maker's guidance also missed expectations, sending that stock down by 13%. And after today's closing bell, we'll see earnings from GameStop. I'm Tucker Silva, and that is Wall Street Watch. Our trivia question we asked in the previous segment was, which character does Bill Burr play in Glengarry Glen Ross on the Broadway show? That would be Dave Moss. Stephen from Yarmouth Port is our winner today, taking home a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. Congrats to Stephen. And we play trivia every day here on the Financial Exchange. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Paul, 6 days ago, the president increased tariffs on imported steel and aluminum to 50% from the previous 25% that had already been announced. Or sorry, is it just steel? I think it's just steel is the 50% duty. And so a lot being written these days about food products, whether it's soup or canned corn, all anticipated to start jumping up in prices. Hormel Foods, Campbell's, and Del Monte Foods have all basically said that. A trade group that represents those three have talked about the prices for items in steel cans increasing by 9 to 15% at the store. So, what are you looking at there? At that rate, the price of a can of vegetables costing $2 could jump up, to between $2.15 and $2.30 per can, which, again, not that canned food is the only end-all be-all here, but it is a pretty significant increase. If you're talking about canned corn going from $2 to $2.30, that's a pretty significant uptick on food prices that people are already fairly uncomfortable with. This one doesn't seem like it's going to go away overnight, and look, ultimately, U.S. Steel can produce some of this stuff domestically, but it's not going to happen overnight either. And so, I think those price increases are likely real. The other question is, hey, do we see this stuff on aluminum, and then do beer prices go up too? That's the more important question to me, at least, is what happens to beer prices is always my concern. But this is the area that's being talked about. It's not the other industries that use steel. You don't hear a lot about the auto industry. This seems to be one that high turnover, high frequency, and will be quickly realized by consumers.
Yeah, you wonder if some of these companies, the longer this goes on, do they scrutinize whether they want to continue to use steel and these tin cans, or perhaps pivot to another sourcing, whether that be plastics or some other there. That is potential ramification there, but it does seem like there is capacity. You just wonder how much demand is there for these other domestic producers to focus on these type of markets. I can't imagine the margins are too large compared to some of the more larger scale steel endeavors.
I've got to say, and maybe I'm just being obtuse or not caring enough about this specific space, but this probably doesn't even rank top 10 on my list of concerns about the economy right now. Just honestly, I don't love the policy. I see why they're doing it. The last time we did steel and aluminum tariffs, it led to job loss. I don't think it's a great, it'll help the domestic steel industry, but I think everyone understands the trade-off there, which is you'll have a robust steel industry, but a bunch of other industries will struggle because of it. Honestly, I don't think it's going to cause a recession. I don't think it's going to meaningfully increase prices across the board. And ultimately, I think the economy just adapts to it.
I'm with you.
Summer in New England is nearly upon us. The kids are home from school. The sun doesn't set until after 8, and it's likely time for you to relax. Well, while you're relaxing, why don't you take a few minutes to check out visitusvi.com and research your next vacation in the United States Virgin Islands. The USVI is something for everyone, be it the rich history of St. Croix, the spectacular beaches of St. Thomas, or the tranquil quiet of St. John. Visit one island or all three and enjoy the vacation of a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com to make your reservation today. That's visitusvi.com.
Paul, have you been seeing more of the digital shelf labels at grocery stores, given how frequently you do the grocery shopping for your family?
And $7 garlic. Paul.
I'm just glad you didn't ask me for the cans prices on the last one for the
at least $12.
Canned lima beans. What you got, Paul? Give me the over-under.
I was trying to think of how many canned items we even have in the house, and that was a struggle to rack my brain on.
Yeah.
So I'm aware of it for the work that I do for the show, but not in person.
So there's been a bigger push recently from grocery stores for, I think, what are obvious reasons to replace regular price labels with digital price labels. It's an expensive transition, but it gives you an immense amount of flexibility when you think about how frequently, for instance, egg prices change. The criticism of it, I think, is pretty obvious. If you're able to do this, okay, it's in the New England area today, it's what, like 64 and rainy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what I'm going to do in the New England region right now is I'm going to charge pretty normal prices on ice pops and ice cream.
Sunscreen,
all that stuff. Thursday, I think it's supposed to be mid-80s and sunny. And then Saturday, again, it'll be rainy for like the 16th weekend in a row. If I have a physical shelf, I've got to pay somebody to go there and jack up the price on sunscreen on that Thursday where the sun's out and the temperature is increased. If I have a digital shelf, I can have an algorithm. I don't even need to pay a person. I can say, hey, control the sunscreen prices and the ice cream prices purely based on the temperature outside of this area and fluctuate it every day based on that. Obviously, people don't love the idea of that, but that's what I would do if I owned a grocery store, and I think that's ultimately where they're going to go with it. And as much as some people might push back on this, I think we're largely going to accept it.
I would say that it may be overdone how much you see of this because they make some good points in this article that ultimately the relationship with someone who shops at your grocery store is something that is not just a one-time purchase of a couch or, a vehicle is not a one-time purchase, but a substantial purchase that you don't go back to often. It's a weekly endeavor.
Yeah.
And
if you feel like you're getting screwed.
If you're found guilty of doing these price-surging tactics, does that damage your brand reputation to cause Mike or someone else to say, you know what, screw this place. I'm going to go elsewhere because they happen to gouge me. I was looking to buy inflatable pool for the kids or whatever at Walmart, and they happen to increase the price by 15, 20%. I'm not going to shop there anymore just because it irritates you. So I feel like because this industry is so fragmented and so competitive on pricing, I just don't think that they have enough grasp on market share to do this, to irritate, to successfully take advantage of people like that. There's just so much competition. It would be hard to do that.
The really scary version of this futuristic world that we all live in, the one that really is nowhere in the near future, but that worries me in the back of my mind is, okay, I'm the grocery store and I have some means of identifying that Paul Lane just walked down the aisle because either I've got a tag to his phone or somehow I've learned enough about him that I know that he's the one shopping, just like Amazon does when Paul logs on to Amazon, and I can customize prices to Paul Lane. Because God knows that guy doesn't know what garlic goes for. And so I'm going to charge this guy $6 because he has no idea that garlic should cost so little. And that's not even being talked about, but that's the dystopian world that I think many fear with these types of things is, hey, do you get to some point where just like airlines vary the price based on your IP address and what time you're looking for the flight and who you are, it starts happening in store shopping too. And that's the weird dystopian future that we are nowhere near, but that people fear with these price changes.
The good thing is there's always going to be a lot more competition or options on the food space than it is airlines. There's only so many ways you can get to Miami from Boston.
Yep.
But there's a whole lot more ways that you can go out and do a grocery store run right now.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's take a quick break. When we come back here, Stack Roulette.
The Financial Exchange has gone national. Hear the show daily on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132. Keep it here for the latest business and financial news, what's happening on Wall Street, and the president's economic agenda. The Financial Exchange is live on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Summer in New England is nearly upon us. The kids are home from school, the sun doesn't set until after 8. It's likely time for you to relax. Well, while you're relaxing, take a few minutes to check out visitusvi.com and research your next vacation in the United States Virgin Islands. The USVI has something for everyone, be it the rich history of St. Croix, the spectacular beaches of St. Thomas, or the tranquil quiet of St. John. Visit one island or all three and enjoy the vacation of a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com to make your reservation today. That's visitusvi.com.
Planning for retirement is much like cramming for a final exam, and no stone should be left unturned before you're ready to take that step. Hi, this is Chuck Zada from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we help folks just like you plan for retirement every day. Our new guide is called Your Retirement Planning Checklist, and in it, we'll remind you of the various issues that may be most important to your planning process. Let's start with the date you choose to retire. That'll depend on a variety of factors, including your income and your health. You may also want to modify your investment portfolio to create ways to maintain the wealth you've already earned. And you'll also want to make sure that you're prepared for major unexpected expenses. Life moves quickly, and you'll need to know if you can cover that cost. Call us today at 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001, or request it online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Is it a stroke? Even if you're not sure, act fast and call 911. Signs can include face drooping on one side, arm weakness, speech difficulty, or not making sense when talking. Time is critical. A stroke requires immediate medical care, which starts as soon as the ambulance arrives. So if you see any sign of stroke, act fast and call 911. Visit mass.gov/stroke, sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
The Financial Exchange streams live on YouTube. Subscribe to our page and stay up to date on breaking business news all morning long. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Market can't seem to make up its mind. It's slightly positive here as we close out the hour. But, Paul, what do you have for us for Stack Roulette?
Piece here from the Wall Street Journal. Think twice before you unsubscribe.
Darn it.
We have a just deluge of these emails that we get at our...
I unsubscribe like once a week, by the way, from like random emails.
I can... So. We get... you, Mike, I think you share in the same boat with me on this. As a company, ever since we made a transition, we get just bombarded with them. It seems like average, maybe I get 10 to 15 a day. It's just absolutely constant. And sometimes I get so irritated that I just go on this binge of unsubscribing from all these different sites that inundate me with daily emails. And this Wall Street Journal piece makes a good point here that think twice just before you're clicking that unsubscribe. And just because what happens was when you click that unsubscribe, obviously you're taken to a separate web page in order to click that unsubscribe button. But you do find yourself in a place where you're trying to hastily kind of take care of it and get it done very quickly.
You oftentimes have to enter your email address.
Yeah, just be sure. I mean, this piece mentions don't enter your password. It's hard. Many of these I'm not even a subscriber to in the first place, so that is not even on the table. But really just be careful as to what type of information you're entering or where that website is taking you to ensure that it is a place that legitimately is unscribing you from the communications and not potentially putting your information out to be exposed for malware or anything else.
It seems to me that generally speaking, I don't do unsubscribe. I basically block the sender in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Because I don't trust that this is a legitimate website that I can actually follow. And so my feeling on it has been like, okay, yeah, if this is a big, well-known company and I'm able to verify that they are who they say they are, I'll go hit the unsubscribe button. Gmail will actually send me notifications every once in a while, like, hey, you haven't opened an email from this place in 3 months. Do you want us to unsubscribe for you? And I will click that. Hopefully that's not causing a problem. But this is akin to what I've experienced elsewhere, because what they accuse them of doing in the least damaging ones are, okay, they take your email address and say, oh, yeah, you unsubscribed. Here's like 30 new subscriptions that we're going to start sending you because we know that this is a legit email address. And that is exactly what I've experienced with spam phone calls. I generally never pick up the phone if I don't recognize the number, but I was buying a car recently from a dealership with a 508 area code, and that's also my area code, and so that's where all my spam calls come from. I accidentally picked one up, should have hung up immediately, couldn't help myself, talked some trash to the people trying to scam me out of fake solar panels, and since that date, I have received no fewer than 12 spam calls a day, every single day, from 508 phone numbers. And I know what happened. I mean, the guy swore at me and said, no sugarcoating it, that he was not terribly happy with me wasting his time. And I just know that the second that happened, he took my phone number and plastered it all over the dark web saying, hey, this is this guy's name. Call him as much as you possibly can. Turn it on for this guy because he's a jerk and he, turned down my fake solar panel offer. And
how long did you go down the solar panel road with this guy?
So first I got, the first person that, asked me my name and told me about it.
And my social. And
they just said, is this Mike Armstrong? And I was like, all right, I know what this is. But I said, yes. And so they're like, all right, I want to connect you with our person here. And so they connected me with a new guy who started talking to me about the solar panels. And so he just goes, and so can I get your address? I'm like, well, let's just be clear here. You have my phone number and name, but you don't have my address. And at that point, he just went off on me.
It seems unfair on his end.
He just went off on me because he knew that I wasn't going to fall for this garbage. And I wasn't rude or anything like that. He used some rather coarse language that I can't repeat on air, but you have the bleep ready to go, Tucker?
But yeah, creating more work for himself.
I guess that's the other cybersecurity warning of the day, which is even merely answering the phone, which is so tempting to do because so many of these are so stupid and all you want to do is just tie them up on the phone so they can't harm other people. And I get that desire. But before you do it, just understand that you will be buried with this stuff going forward if you go and do so.
When it's your area code, it's tough. That one you do think, is it something from my kid in town that, they're calling from, the 978, the 617, whatever, and it makes you more willing to. I will say the phone does a pretty good job. Are you still on Android?
Yeah.
Loser.
The iPhone does a pretty good job. Tucker, you probably can back me on this, of sorting out what are spam calls. I feel
Possible
like they've
spam,
gotten better and better at that, saying potential spam.
Again, before this incident, I wouldn't get any.
Mm-hmm.
So it was doing a pretty good job of filtering it out until this incident where I suspect that I just plastered all over there as a key target that they want to hit. So I'm sure that I'm still getting some of them filtered out, but not nearly enough of them to make a difference at this stage. So yeah, especially if you have, especially loved ones who are seniors who are dealing with this, that's where it gets really dangerous because it might be one thing for me to turn down 15 calls a day, but my 84-year-old grandfather wouldn't be able to handle it, and I'd be really worried about where that goes.
The text from EasyPass, there's been a lot of spoofing of that.
Yeah.
Either I
got one yesterday.
My mother was mentioning that she got it in a meeting at work when she has younger coworkers, and they're like, "No, don't do anything with that." It's tempting with the unpaid bills that people freak out.
Markets remain in positive territory as we close out the show. The S&P 500 up 15 points or 0.25%. The Nasdaq up 51 points, another 0.25% there. Small caps are up quite a bit this morning, up 0.7% on the Russell 2000, and the Dow basically flat for the day. We'll be back at it tomorrow with an 8:30 a.m. CPI print. We'll be covering that and more tomorrow on the Financial Exchange.